laps. Finally, we get underway with race 2 of round 3 of the 2021 Asia Talent Cup, the Indonesian round. For the second time of asking, we get underway. Fast start immediately from the number 21, the pole sitter Daniel Sharil has really made a break in the run down towards turn 1. They're practically 8 abreast further back in the pack. Furusato's made a good jump from the second row of the grid. That's Ferdaus as well, up into P3, I think, as early as turn number 1. So a train of riders now from second position back. But the key story of the first bend, Furusato making immediate progress.
Yeah, Ferdaus with a good start as well. Looks like Hongo's up there in the leading positions as well. Carter Thompson on the number 6 machine, converting his converting his front row start into a top 5 position as well. So everyone able to make it through those first couple of corners cleanly. We did see one rider running out wide through that opening corner, but everyone cleanly through.
Yes, so Herjan Firdaus, who came home in 10th place in race 1, his first appearance of this 2021 season, is now taking the fight to the championship leader. And Furusato is going to have at least one bite between himself and the man that he'll aim to beat if he is to take the title here today. Pulling away out in front, then it's Daniel Sharil from Firdaus in second position, the number 10. Then it's the number 15, the championship leader Furusato. Hongo, who completed the front row of the grid, Masaya Hongo, the 17-year-old from Japan, is directly behind them. A little bit of liberties being taken there on the outside of the circuit. Hongo just being picked off by Gun Mie, who recovers 4th position successfully. Furusato getting back on terms with Firdaus now, and Mie following him through. Hongo's been relegated down to 5th position, but the main loser of the opening lap has been Carter Thompson from P2 down to P7. A little bit of rubbing in the top 5 positions. They're only costing one another time at this stage.
Yeah, and certainly at the front of the field, Daniel Sharil has to take advantage of any scrapping that goes on behind them. He's been able to open up a pretty good lead on the opening lap. We'll see if the likes of Furusato is able to close down that 7/10 of a second.
Firdaus was the rider to lose out in that scrapping. And you can see them all still at it, but it's enabling the leaders to break away. Daniel Sharil, the fastest man first time around, 3/4 of a second. He has ended up dropping a couple of places there. Furusato then 3/4 of a second behind Sharil, the race leader. Another half a second back is Mie in 3rd place. Then it's Hongo on the number 17, the yellow helmet you can see there. The number 6 of Carter Thompson has now recovered at 5th place. So Firdaus relegated to 6th, and Aditama, Fadilla, Sharil and Dandy rounding out your top 10.
Yeah, and Sharil at the front of the field. Daniel Sharil on that 21. He's opened up 8/10 of a second. On this lap, he's been able to stretch out another couple of tenths of a second. But we'll see if Furusato and Mie are able to close down that gap. You can see down in towards turn 10. That looked like it might have been Aditama trying to attack down into 10.
That was a big attack from Aditama as well. You can see the green helmet flashing through, running wide. Wakamatsu, who'd made good progress in the early stages from P16, was up to 11th. He's run off the circuit altogether and may well drop back. The lead group at the moment is comprised of 12 riders, all covered by 2.5 seconds, although that may begin to fracture, well, will begin to fracture as the race goes on, little doubt about that. Furusato behind Sharil. As things stand, the championship fight would go into the 3rd race of the weekend, would go into round 4 of the 2021 Asia Talent Cup that gets underway this afternoon. But Furusato is not done just yet, that's for sure.
Yeah, good riding there from Mie as well on that number 5 machine to just drop behind Furusato, not try and attack at this stage. See if Furusato is able to use his pace. He is the pole sitter for the remaining 2 races this weekend. He was fast in free practice yesterday. He is the fastest rider out here in Indonesia this weekend. You want to try and see if you're able to use him just to close that gap onto Sharil at the front of the field. They pulled back 1/10 of a second last time around.
Mie, the fastest man of that second lap, a 1:44.118 according to our timing screens. So just 7/10 of a second now covering the lead trio. There's over a second, the gap back now to Masaya Hongo on the number 17. I think that Firdaus might have just got back in front of him, actually. The two of them scrapping in the early stages of lap 3. Carter Thompson trying to recover. So that's your breakaway, and it's a trio once again contesting the podium places.
Yeah, and certainly as it is right now, you'd expect these 3 to be able to maintain their pace and stay as a bit of a group, because Furusato and Mie are going to close up on Daniel Sharil already in the last couple of corners. We've seen them pull back another couple of tenths of a second. They are doing their best to get that gap down. It's down to 4/10 of a second.
Masaya Hongo coming through on the inside of Herjan Firdaus, and Hongo, who crashed out pretty spectacularly actually, at the final turn, halfway through yesterday's race, his first retirement of the season, back up and running and inside the lead group once again. He was in the top 6 at the time of his crash yesterday. Certainly has been his best weekend so far. A 7th position in the visit to... Well, I think I might have cursed him because he's run off the circuit altogether there and been picked off by Feardouse. But that's one of those inevitable circumstances of a pack race, and he is still in the group from 4th position back. Very much 2 fights at the moment. But just going back to Messiah Hongo on the number 17, having a really strong weekend here and has never finished in the top 6 before. So looking good to do so in race 2.
I'll tell you what, all the way around the outside, I think that was Fadilla. This is his debut weekend in the ATC. He's after picking off 2 riders on the run into turn 15 there. Looks like he was able to get through on the likes of Carter Thompson in front of him.
Ray-Cat Fadilla, who was 5th position in yesterday's race. It was a race of attrition, as we've been saying in the build-up, but on your debut to keep your nose clean when 7 riders around you are retiring is impressive. And there was a sort of secondary group, a quartet really, all fighting over that place, which was 5th in the end. It was slightly further back until a couple of incidents ahead of them, and that secondary group was covered by just 1.5 seconds at the checkered flag, and he was actually starting to ease away from them at the time of the completion of the race. So yeah, as you say, Ray-Cat Fadilla doing a great job for 5th position here yesterday on his debut. Now it's all closed back up at the front of the field, lap 4 of 12, so it is something of a sprint. We are heading towards a 3rd race distance. Daniel Sharil is defending against Tayo Furusato. Furusato comes around the outside. I thought that Gunmir might blindside him, might catch him by surprise, but he was aware enough to be able to sweep through and hold on. Mie then in 2nd position, and that's the worst possible outcome for Daniel Sharil, who's relegated down to 3rd.
Yeah, Sharil goes from 1st to 3rd, and Furusato has done a good job to bridge that gap. We've also seen Mia with fast pace all the way through this weekend, and in yesterday's race he just gave up a little bit of ground in the final laps. Obviously a shorter race today, that might play to his strengths as well.
Yes, I should say that Gunmir is only 6 points back from Daniel Sharil in the championship standings, so he is among the riders who can deny Furusato at least taking the championship in this very race. The other, Carter Thompson, is all the way down in 8th position, so I think we're talking about 3 riders now as potential title contenders, and none more so. He's won all of the races so far. Yesterday, once he hit the front on lap 3, he led every lap over the line from there on in. He's got a 1/4 of a second buffer now over Gunmir, and Daniel Sharil will be keen to take up the challenge at the front.
Yeah, I think yesterday was really impressive to see how cool a head he kept on that final lap. He lost the lead with half a lap to go, was still able to make the move at the penultimate corner, and in this race it looks like Furusato's trying to take advantage of that pace that's on, bridge a gap of almost a second to Daniel Sharil, and try and just get his head down and see if he can break away. We saw in yesterday's races there were times whenever we thought that he might have been able to break away, wasn't quite able to do it. It's going to take a big ask from him to try and open up a gap. As it is, you'd expect to see the top 3 in the championship battling it out all the way through till the end of this race.
Yes, the Indonesian expect more fighting at the head of the field because they've got a couple of their riders in that secondary group. You can see it in the background of the shot, and they all come through together. Feardouse in 4th position, all the way down to Sharil in 10th place, are covered by just a second. So very little to choose between them. I should emphasise that's Sharil I'm talking about down in 10th position, not to be confused with Daniel Sharil, who's that man at the back of this trio at the head of the field.
Yeah, I usually find it confusing enough in the ATC, but at the front of the field, not too confusing for Furusato. He's doing exactly what he did in yesterday's race. Keep himself at the front of the group and let everyone else try and attack you. We saw in yesterday's races he had no problem taking big looks over his shoulder, just understanding who was in the group, what he had to do. When he needed to get his head down, he got his head down. And
Mie in the early stages was able to take the fight to him, was able to fight his way through down the inside at one stage. First incident of the race. We did say that yesterday was pretty action-packed, and it looks as though race 2 is going to follow that trend. First rider down in the gravel trap, and we're going to see exactly what happens. It's the number 25, that's Pratama, Veda Pratama, who has gone down, just chasing. It looked like he was pushing as hard as he can. He's a relative newcomer. He's the youngster that we were talking about earlier on, just 12 years of age. Finished 8th position in race 1 yesterday. He chased perhaps slightly offline, through on the inside, and was the odd one out of that trio. Yeah,
we saw that he was battling it out, just trying to move himself up close enough to the points-paying positions. As it is, it's Tom Drain in 15th in the final points-paying position here.
back with the leaders then. Furusato out in front, just 0.2 of a second now covering the top three. They've gradually bunched up. Who's going to be the first to have a go at Furusato? He's having things all his own way at the moment. That might not be the case for much longer. Mia's got a really good run as they come through the 7, 8, 9 complex and now in towards turn 10. Yesterday's action hotspot, but he wasn't close enough.
Yeah, how impressive is that from Furusato on the brakes there? We saw that Mia had gotten alongside him, but for Furusato, he made sure he was braking that little bit deeper, sweeps across the front of Mia's bike and holds on to that race lead. That's what we saw in yesterday's race as well from Furusato. We know turn 10 is probably the best overtaking opportunity in the ATC. That's where a lot of moves were made yesterday. It's also where we saw a lot of incidents and a bit of carnage.
Yes, and if Mia can't get through there, then it looks as though he's keen to get through elsewhere in towards turn 16, although we know that Furusato is good against defending against those moves in towards turn 16, don't we, from the last lap of race 1. Sharil looks like he's biding his time at this stage. We head towards half race distance.
Yeah, Sharil there at the back of the group on the 21 machine. We'll see if he's able to try and attack into turn 1, but as it is right now, Mia doing exactly what he did in yesterday's race, but it was around this time that we started to see him fade a little bit, and Sharil and Furusato really just start to open up a little bit of a gap.
Lap 7, last time around, all three of these leaders set 1 minute 44.7s. A quarter of a second covering them as they cross the line. It's a 4.5 second gap now to Firdaus, Herjan Firdaus on the number 10, who sits in 4th position with the entire pack behind him. Still 1.5 seconds covering 4th all the way down to 10th, and then a separate group from 11th position down. But we're quite rightly watching the lead trio, and this is Taiyo Furusato, who might have started in 5th position, but has spent the majority of this race in P1, right where he sits at the moment, under some pressure once again from Gun Mia. We'll see if he can come through this 7, 8, 9 complex where they're making it through now, in towards turn 10, and if he jams it down the inside like he did a lap ago, and whether Furusato has got the answer again on the outside. It's Sharil this time trying to make the move. Mia comes in late. Oh, goodness me, with a bit of a wobble there as well. Almost collected the back of Furusato. That could change the championship complexion very quickly, couldn't it?
Yeah, Furusato's brave to hold that outside line and sweep all the way across and hold on to that position. You can see in the second group, it is still Hongo leading the way, and then the number 10 of Firdaus. We've seen that Carter Thompson managed to get into the top 5 on this lap, but Herjan's got through on him again. That's one rider running off. It could be Aditama that's gone down there in the number 3 machine. That
was a big incident out the back of the shot, and Aditama running straight on in towards the gravel trap, and that is a real shame for Fadila Aditama, the number 3, and that is going to be a 5th retirement out of 6 races in this 2021 campaign. I said on the grid that he'd been a little bit action and prone at times, and so it's proven in this race too.
Yeah, no luck yesterday in an incident at turn 10, and then this incident at turn 13, and high speed crash for him, but good to see him back on his feet and just trying to get that belly pan cleaned out. We'll see if he tries to get back into the race. We did see that riders that crashed in yesterday's race were still able to remount and score some points. We'll see if he can do that, but like you said, Alex, he's had 4 retirements already this season, and then another crash in this race.
Well, we didn't get 15 finishes yesterday. We had 7 riders retiring from a 21 rider grid, so all 14 that finished scored, and that you can see why he's collected another rider before going straight on.
I think it might have been Dandy that he collected there on the number 11 machine, and just left with nowhere to go. A bit similar to what happened to him in yesterday's race as well.
Lap 8 of 12 then, and Sharil has left Mia just as we saw yesterday and is going with Furusato, and they're absolutely nose to tail. They're making their way in towards turn 10 with 4.5 laps to go, and Furusato still got the speed in that braking zone in towards turn 10.
We saw in yesterday's race, though, that Daniel Sharil was willing to make a pretty daring move through the next couple of corners. Down in towards turn 12 is where he made the move. It's a fast left-hander. He stuffed it down the inside in yesterday's race, so we know that if he gets a half a chance, he's going to try and attack on Furusato. Still a lot of this race to go, though. 4 laps to go when they come across the line.
It's very aggressive into turn 12 here. Yesterday was Daniel Sharil to take up the lead, but it only lasted just under a sector before back through around the outside came Furusato through turns 15 and 16 to take the win. Furusato still leads. Sharil going a little bit wide there, and Gunmia coming back through for second position.
Yeah, the one thing that Furusato wants is he wants Gunmia in this group, because as it is, if he finishes second behind Gunmia, he would still win the championship and get it all wrapped up today. And certainly for Furusato, that has to be the target that he's got in his mind, just to make sure he's able to win the Asia Talent Cup this year.
0.3 of a second as they cross the line at the end of lap 8. Separate battle behind. It is still Herjan Firdaus who has led that group for several of the laps around. Hongo oscillating backwards and forwards. He's dropped down to 6th position. That clash with Dandy and Adatama that we saw previously has broken that secondary group in two. There was only 1.5 seconds covering 4th to 10th. It's now a very different scenario. 2.5 seconds just between 6th and 7th. So it's 3 riders contesting the podium places. It's 3 riders contesting 4th position. Carter Thompson actually just getting back through now on Feardows 4P4. Running wide coming off turn 6 was Daniel Sharil. That's left him with a little bit of a margin to find on Gun Mie, but Mie gets down the inside of Furusato, moves across his path in towards turn 10, and if that's what it takes to get it done, so look over his shoulder, knows that Sharil is directly behind him, but with Furusato out in front, if he were to stay there, it still wouldn't be enough with Gun Mie out in front, it still wouldn't be enough to take the title down to another race because Daniel Sharil is directly behind as well.
Yeah, and you can see here with the championship leader Furusato, we'll see if he's able to try and be aggressive on the run down in towards the last corner to see if he can try and make a move back into the race lead.
Yes, I got my words in a twist there. This is the live championship, and that'll explain it possibly better than I just did. Basically, I was saying that Furusato, if he finishes second behind Mie, who's also in contention, a similar number of points to Daniel Sharil, then we would still go into the third race of the weekend here this afternoon. 3 laps to go then. Furusato out in front, 3/10 covering your lead trio, as it has been for the majority of this race, to be perfectly honest. Furusato back in front, and Daniel Sharil, his closest points rival, stuck down in third. Gun Mie's been the more pugnacious of the two over the last lap or so.
I was getting a bit confused with my championship standings as well, so certainly for Furusato, the easy target is win the race, win the championship, and he's doing exactly that once again. He's opened up another couple of tenths of a second, but we've seen in this sector of the track, this is where the number 5 of Gun Mie is very fast and able to bridge that gap. But we also know Daniel Sharil in yesterday's race had that edge in the closing stages. He needs to get through into second spot to see if he's able to take the fight to Furusato.
Furusato is your leader. Mie then in second position. We've seen most of the moves in the Asia Talent Cup this weekend, and also most of the crashes in towards turn number 10. They're 3 abreast this time around. Furusato on the 15 on the outside. Mie is getting moved out of the way now by Daniel Sharil, who comes through for seconds.
Yeah, Sharil did a good job there to hold on to second spot. We saw that bike moving around a lot in the entry into turn 10. As you said, Alex, that's where we saw a lot of incidents in yesterday's race. So it is a place where you can make overtaking moves. It's also a place where it can all go badly wrong.
2 laps and 1 sector to go now. We're on lap 10 of 12, a reduced length to this race after a delay due to weather conditions before we could get underway. Race 2, Furusato in front, Daniel Sharil keen to get through. This is where Furusato got round him yesterday for the race victory. Sharil's going to get a little bit offline here, and Gun Mie is going to slam it down the inside in towards 15 and 16 and recover second place, and Furusato again is able to defend that lead.
Second time we've seen Gun Mie do that on Sharil as well, so we can clearly see Sharil is struggling into turn 15 to get that bike stopped. But maybe just a little bit of tactics from Sharil as well. It'd be interesting to see if he changes tack in the final couple of laps.
2 to go. Furusato has a 3/10 of a second advantage over Mie and Sharil. These two have got to be careful that they don't fight with one another. We know that Furusato, as he did yesterday, has got a last couple of laps sprint in him.
Yeah, we saw in yesterday's race, he tried on the second last lap, the penultimate lap, to open a gap and then leave it with a comfortable gap on that final lap. Wasn't able to do it. Now the key thing for him is this opening couple of sectors. Is he able to open up enough of a gap? We know that the run through 6, 7, 8 and 9, that's where you can use the slipstream and close right up. Sharil's close enough to be able to use some of that toe in the run down in towards turn 10. Championship situation is fairly straightforward with the 2 riders behind him. If either of them gets through on Furusato, the championship will go another race. But if Furusato stays out in front and takes what will be a 6th consecutive victory of this 2021 campaign, then he will have sewn up the Asia Talent Cup with 2 races to spare, and that's the way it looks at the moment. Furusato has been almost untroubled at the head of the field. Yeah, he's done a really good job in this race to keep the cool head. We saw the same in yesterday's race, but Sharil is right there with him. Gun Mie has now lost a few tenths of a second. He's 4/10 of a second behind Sharil, so suddenly it's left to the top 2 in the championship for most of this season. They're battling it out in the final lap and a half. It is a near repeat of race 1 yesterday, when on the final 2 laps Gun Mie, the number 5, got dropped back from the lead duo. These are the top 3 in the championship, and they currently sit in the order that they are in the classification as well. Furusato, who leads it by 46 points over Daniel Sharil. Gun Mie 52 points down on Furusato, so would need to beat him to keep his personal hopes alive, and at the moment it's all about
about Furusato heading his way towards victory. 1 to go.
Yeah, really important for Furusato just to think about where he can defend on the run in towards turn 10. He has been stronger everywhere else around this track all the way through this weekend. He's going to force Shireel to go around the outside into turn 1.
Daniel Shireel, who was more than 0.3 of a second faster than Furusato, the race leader, last time around, gets around the outside into turn 1, and Furusato eases him out, and then there's a bit of a moment for Daniel Shireel coming through the first turn. He's going to...
Super riding from Furusato, forced Shireel to go the long way around the outside then to start-finish straight in the run into turn 1. He's going to have to try and do something similar on the run into turn 10 as well. That's Shireel's best chance to make the move.
We saw Shireel was willing to make the move wherever he could. Yes, no, big moment there for Gunmi, and he's gone out onto those big serrated curbs on the outside line as well. So that rules him out of a fight between these top two, because there's 0.6 of a second already between second and third positions, and Gunmi has got it all wrong there on the final lap. He holds on for a podium position. Shireel to the outside line then as they come in towards turn number 10. Tries to go the long way round. He'll now switch it back. It gives him the inside line for turn 11. Daniel Shireel has thought about this in advance, but he's not quite alongside. Furusato defends the position through turn 12, where Daniel Shireel passed Furusato here yesterday. These two have swapped and changed. There were 8 thousandths of a second across the last timing point between the two of them. Shireel gets nerfed to the inside. He takes that as his opportunity, as his call to arms into turn 13, and comes through. Then Furusato recovers it coming through turn 14. It's a head-to-head on the final lap that will determine whether we go to another race in the Asia Talent Cup for 2021, or whether we have just settled the series standings. One final sector to go. It's Furusato, the leader, on the number 15. It's Daniel Shireel, the pretender, on the number 21. I don't think he's going to be close enough coming off the final turn. It's a drag race down to the line. Furusato holds on, and Taiyo Furusato claims the 2021 Asia Talent Cup with 2 races to spare.
I actually thought Furusato might have gone too defensive there in the final sector, judged it to perfection. Really good race performance from him. Hongo takes 4th. Thompson's up inside the top 5 once again as the rest of the field comes through to claim the points paying positions.
Yes, Thompson rounding out your top 5. Feardaus for Jeter, an isolated 7th position.